welcome to a very special afternoon edition of the Happy Hour. We have a scheduling conflict this week. Monk will be back next week to cover the UFC pay-per-view. Next week on the channel, we should have a whole bunch of goodies. We try to do a little bit extra for this pay-per-views. In fact, I will have a guest next week that's never been on the channel. I'm very excited about. That will be announced early next week. In lieu of this being early in the week and this being kind of a dicey card, I will also give you guys everything else that I'm betting this weekend, which includes some EPL, NFL, and college, along with all my picks for this. And at the end of the show, I will also give you the tracked bets that I currently have for this card. And kind of as we go through this card, I'll tell you what I'm leaning on and I may or may not get to. But if you haven't already, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Every little bit does help us, and we do appreciate it. Let's get right into this card. First up, Ramona Pasquale against Tamiris Vidal. I'll keep this one short and sweet. I'm not impressed with Vidal at all. I guess I'm more impressed because I didn't break my TV like Brady did. But Pasquale, mixed results on the card, but at plus 120, I like her. By the way, any odds that I give out will be from DraftKings Sportsbook. Your books may vary. Please shop around for the best price. If I have to bet, it's Pasquale. Nothing I saw about Vidal was impressive. The only path I think she has here is winging bombs, and she's not even that high volume. And the one thing I know about Pasquale is if you watch the Jose Nunez fight, she can endure a ton of punishment. So not really sure what Vidal is going to be able to do to hurt her here. So I like Pasquale to win. Plus 120 is not a bad price. And from a DFS perspective, I want no part of Vidal. I would play a little bit of Pasquale. I think she does have some finish equity. She has some takedown equity. And the price is right. I think she's 7,700. I do not have that up right now. But at the current price, I think she's okay. Let me pull up my DraftKings notes because I did a DraftKings show with Kyle Marley yesterday on the DFS Army channel. Please go check that out as well if you want his picks. Pasquale at 7,700 does have some equity here. I would be kind of careful, but I think you can't ignore her because she could get a finish here. And now let's move on. The next fight of the card, Jake Hadley with one of the worst nicknames I've ever seen in the sport, Wei Kong, going against Carlos Candelario, who the UFC must hate because he beat Altamirano, in my opinion, on the Contender Series, did not get the win. And then they fed him to Tetsuro Taira, who looks like an animal and a contender in this weight division. It was a rescheduled fight. Candelario wasn't 100%, but good on him that he took the fight and made it happen. Hadley right now is a humongous betting favorite. He's minus 255. The return on Candelario is plus 215. I will not be betting this fight, but if there was any bet to make, it would be Candelario. This should play out on the ground a lot. The last time Hadley fought Nascimento, just completely controlled him. Candelario doesn't have great takedown defense, but he's pretty good at scrambling. He's pretty good at reversing positions. If you go back and watch the Altamirano fight, they both had tons of takedowns. He's pretty tough also. If you look at the over 2.5 here, it's pretty juiced. It's minus 215, so they don't think any kind of finish equity on either side. From a betting perspective, I'd favor Candelario, but no bet for me on this one. From a DraftKings perspective, Hadley's my least favorite of the 9K options. I just don't think should be this wide of a favorite. And at 9,200, he's either control dependent for 15 minutes with tons of takedowns, or he's finish dependent. And I don't see either one happening here. Candelario in a loss at 7,000. If he gets a couple of takedowns, if he has some control time, he might get you 40 around that range. He's not a horrible play, and I think he's going to be pretty low owned. So I'd favor having a little more of him than Hadley, but this is a total stay away betting wise for me. And let's just move on to the next fight. Johnny Munoz Jr. against Ludovic Shalinian. This is another fight I'm not betting. Munoz Jr. to me has not done enough to warrant his minus 240 line. I think it's crazy wide. Shalinian, he's a low volume striker. Munoz's striking is very raw too, so I expect this to hit the ground. But Shalinian's wrestling isn't terrible. He's from the Ukrainian national wrestling team. He does have a decent takedown defense. He's hard to control. Munoz Jr. has come in with a lot of fanfare, but to me, he hasn't really played it up too much. I'm not betting this fight. For DraftKings, again, just like the last fight where a guy's a wide favorite, I think that it's going to come down to who gets more takedowns. If this thing stays on the feet, you're not going to want either one of them in your lineups. But from a betting perspective, if you had to, I would take the dog here again, but no confidence. From a DraftKings perspective, I'd have a little bit of each. Again, if one of them just dominates on the ground, you're going to want the control points and the takedowns. But I would keep this one fairly small and under-owned as well. I just don't have a lot of confidence. And we're going to talk about a couple of fights in this card where when you have two guys that are super grapplers or that's their prime focus, sometimes you get weird stand-up fights. So I'm going to be under-owned in the field on this one, but no bet for me on this one at all. And speaking of no bets, let's move on to Jinyu Fry against Polyana Viana. I have no interest betting this fight. Jinyu Fry, I thought she lost to Demopoulos. I know people thought it was controversial. I did have a bet on Demopoulos by decision in that fight, so there may be some rose-colored glasses on that. But Jinyu Fry is too low volume for me. Her takedown defense is pretty good. And Polyana Viana, even though she may have slightly more volume on the feet, although you really don't know. It's just hard to be less volume than Jinyu Fry at this point. She's not a proactive grappler. I mean, all she wants to do is get it to the ground and pull guard and try to get armbar by guard. I'm not interested in this fight in any perspective. I don't like the betting side at all. If it stays on the feet, I guess Frey. But again, she's so low volume. Judges hate what she does that I can't really back her with any confidence. From a DraftKings perspective, Frey is a horrible scorer in general. And Viana is very submission dependent. She doesn't get takedowns. She doesn't get control time. And she's the favorite in terms of the DraftKings pricing. She is, I believe, 8,300. I didn't have that one written down because I wrote down total pass for me. I would avoid this fight at all costs. I am not interested. Let's move on. This one I do have a lot of interest in. Mario Batista against Benito Lopez. Batista's looked pretty good his last two fights. He beat friend of the channel, Jay Perrin. Had a lot of takedowns in that fight. And then his last fight against Kelleher, he just mowed through him, got him out of there quick with a sub. Benito Lopez, I guess he's working for Ally Aquinta. We don't really know. Been doing real estate. I wasn't overly super impressed with him to begin with. Leg kicks are good, but aside from that, there's nothing else. The only concern that I have here with Batista is I can't say that I love his striking defense. And I do think that he's prone to getting bopped. So one of my track bets is Batista in the distance. It's plus 165. I think it's a great price against a guy who hasn't fought in 3 years. I'll be heavy on this fight in DraftKings. I'll have a little bit of Lopez. If you're going to do a 20 max, I'd get to him in one or two lineups. He does have finish equity, and his price is fantastic at 7,100. But I'm going to be very heavy on the Batista side. He can get this done with a knockout. He can get this done with a submission. He can get a lot of takedowns. He's not even finish dependent to score really well in the DraftKings side of things. I do think he can get tons of takedowns. Even in a decision, he's probably going to get you 100 points. But I also think the Batista sub at plus 600 is absolutely fantastic equity. If he gets this thing to the ground, I don't know that Lopez's cardio is going to be good enough. And if he gets locked up in any kind of choke, again, you get a guy that hasn't fought in so long, he may tap quicker than usual, just knowing he's in a very bad spot. So Batista all day for me here. Great DraftKings play. Great bet. Moving on. Another fight that I have a bet on and some DraftKings interest in. Miranda Maverick against Shanna Young. Shanimal, short and sweet. Miranda Maverick has already beaten her. I know it was an exhibition. I know it was a while ago, but she's improved. Even if Shanna Young's made improvements, Maverick to me has made more. She's very proactive with takedowns. Her striking is improving. I actually think she's the better striker here, although it's close. But I don't think this fight will play on the feet for most of it as long as it lasts. Maverick in the distance is another one of my track bets at plus 100. I think she's a great DraftKings play, even though she's the highest salaried person on the board at 9,400. I think she's going to get you a lot of points on the ground. I think she's got a first-round submission in her. If not even a first-round submission, she'll control the whole first round. She'll rack up takedowns. She'll get you control time points. She strikes on the ground, too. She's not just hunting for subs. And then I think she puts this away no later than middle of the second round. So for me, Maverick's a great play in DraftKings and her in the distance prop. I would not parlay her at minus 600. That's personal preference. I don't really like those kind of bets at all. They're not fun for me. And you don't really get a lot of value in your parlays. So we are flying along. We are halfway through this card. Next up is a fight that I am looking forward to. And I have probably this is one of the linchpin bets that I'm going to have. I have a lot of equity tied in this one. Derek Minner against Shailin Nuerdanbeke, the Wolverine. I think this one's kind of simple to break down. I like Minner. As an underdog, he's fun to bet. His round one sub is very live here at plus 700. I've seen some books get it at plus 800. I wouldn't bet him by decision. I just don't trust his cardio enough. But Minner, very dangerous the first 5 minutes of a fight, and even slightly into the second round, depending on how it plays out. If he does have top control and he's not just locking in chokes where he's extending all, burning out his arms, he's live for a few minutes in the second. But we've seen Nuerdanbeke in 2 fights that are really similar, where TJ Brown is dangerous in the first with the grappling, and then he gassed out, and Nuerdanbeke took over. We saw it with Sean Soriano, where he's got 5 minutes of cardio, came out hot out of the gate. Nuerdanbeke took over, went to the grappling. So under 2.5 here for me, minus 130, one of my favorite plays. Fight to end in submission, and I'll give credit to Kyle Marley. I was looking at this one, but he got it first. Plus 200 for either guy to win by sub. I love that. And as I mentioned, the minimum round one sub, I think, is a really nice prop here. For DraftKings, I will have 100% of this fight. Whoever wins is going to score massively. I don't think this thing plays out on the feet at all. I think if Minnow wraps up around one sub at 7,300, he's getting you maybe 110 points with control time in a first round finish. Nuerdanbeke, even in a decision, which I do not think is happening in this fight, could score a ton. He's going to have control time. He's going to have takedowns. Minner, we've seen him wilt so many times that it may not even take a ton on the ground for Nuerdanbeke to really get this done. But I think he could get this done by the end of round 2, rack up tons of control, tons of ground strikes, lock up a neck, get us out of there. Either one's going to score over 100 here, in my opinion. I will be just 100% onto this, and my night will depend on it. Moving on, Mark Madsen against Grant Dawson. Now, this is where I'm going to go a little contrarian to the field. I will not be betting this fight. I think the line's too wide. As impressive as Dawson has looked in some spots, his cardio is wilted in others. The Rick Glenn fight, it's a really big red flag for me. I didn't like how he looked, and the draw seemed about right. As far as Mark Madsen goes, I think his striking is a little better than people think. He looked all right against Pichel, but Pichel took him down too, and that's a very big concern here. So earlier on, I had mentioned when you get guys that are proactive grapplers that are very good on the ground, sometimes they negate each other and you get a weird striking matchup. If we get a striking matchup here for any kind of prolonged amount of time, I don't know who to favor. I almost want to lean Madsen. I won't, but if you're going to bet this fight, I think this is dog or pass. I lean Madsen. I will not be betting it. From a DraftKings perspective, if you're trying to win a GPP, this is where I think you can plant your flag. What's up, Raw Torque? Welcome to the show, my friend. Usually he says, "What's up, ladies?" But, I guess I'm the only lady in the house, so what can he do? I'm going to be a little underweight to this. I think you have to have a little bit of Madsen or Dawson, because if one of them does dominate, obviously you're going to want those control time points and takedowns. But I do have a feeling this could negate each other, and that Dawson at Mark Madsen reminds me of Kurt Angle at plus 180. I think that's the only play here from Mr. Touchy. I think this is one where you're going to have Dawson crazy owned in a GPP, and Madsen's going to be a very sexy underdog play in GPPs. But this is where I'm just going to go contrarian, and I'm going to be really underweight to the field on both of them. I think if they do play out on the feet, the winner of this may get 70 points. If it's Madsen getting you 70, that's all right at his salary. It's not too bad. But Dawson being a 2-1 favorite here, if he gets you 70, that's a disaster for a guy at his high salary. See, I was saying Dawson sub round 3. Look, man, I get out of bed for round 3 props. Those are my favorite to bet. They pay well. I think for Dawson to do it, Madsen would need to fatigue, which is certainly a possibility at his age and his, what we've seen from in the past. I wouldn't talk you off that, but for me, I'm just, something in my head's telling me, lay off this one completely. So I am going to move on, but and here's another one that I'm going to have a little bit of a contrarian take on. Tajiri Bekoff against Nate Maness. Very important to mention first. Make sure you look at Maness on the scale tomorrow. He's dropping a 125. He's 5'10". He's huge for the weight class. So let's be careful here. Tajir, just not impressed. Just completely not impressed. I think we're paying a tax because of his name and because who coaches him. It says on the screen Maness is plus 150, but I can tell you that is incorrect. Maness right now is plus 185.
It's Maness or pass for me, but this is another one in DraftKings where I think Tajir is going to be very popular, especially at this price point at 8,600. I don't want anything to do with him. Yes, we've seen Maness controlled on the ground. We've seen him taken down, but I think he's going to be the bigger, stronger guy here. He's going to be way more dangerous on the feet. And I think he could land a couple of big shots here. And I think Maness has a chance to win either by KO or by decision. I see Io saying by decision. I certainly don't hate any Maness play here. I don't think Tajir is trustworthy as an almost 2-1 favorite, or as a 2-1 favorite as he currently is. He's minus 215. Again, he's going to be I think Maness is an interesting pivot play in DraftKings. He's finish dependent because I don't know that he's going to do enough on the feet to really score you a ton of points at his salary of 7,600. But I think he's going to be super low owned. And if he does get a finish, it's going to break the slate. And maybe 5% of the people are going to have him. So if you want to go contrarian, he's a really interesting pivot play for me. But I'm going to be crazy low owned on Tajir. Can't ignore him in a 20 max. You have to get to some of them. He does have a lot of grappling upside, but he doesn't throw any strikes on the ground. I mean, you look at his wins, he does not score very well in wins. In fact, I'm going to pull this up. In fact, against Elliott, that was the most strikes that he had ever thrown in a fight. So just give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. Tajir. Okay, so against Elliott, he threw 90 strikes, and that was a lot of Tim Elliott scrambling and keeping this on the feet. He beats Nascimento. He has 4 takedowns in a reversal, 18 significant strikes, scored 93 points, which isn't terrible. That's a 10x, but it's not what you really expect for a guy that's controlling a fight. Against Silva, 46 significant strikes, 5 takedowns, 85 points in a decision win. I think there's better options on this card. You have to get to some of them, but I don't think you have to go overexposed to the field here. So we are going to move on to the people's main event. Josh Parisian against Chase Sherman. Oh, boy. So let's talk about the DraftKings side of this thing first. I am not betting this fight. First, let me just get that out of the way. I am not betting this. I see a lot of strong takes out there that Sherman can win, and that, like, you look at his losses and he's losing at the top of the division. Parisian got controlled by Dante Almeida. He comes back and beat the legendary Alan Badeau round 2, which I had been drinking and decided I was putting a Parisian KO bet on. So, hey, man, you got me money. I'll forever be grateful. Here's the problem from a DraftKings perspective. When these guys win, they're scoring over 100 points. When they lose, their opponents are scoring over 100 points. It's also your 8,200, 8,000 fight. So you need to get to this. And I can't believe I'm going to have to do this, but I'm going to be 100%. I'll be 50-50 each. Parisian is 200 cheaper. Yeah, the problem is Sherman stinks. Here's the flip side of that problem. Josh Parisian also stinks. They are both not so good at fighting. They may be wonderful at, like, accounting or, like, grocery shopping. Like, maybe they pick out, like, the best pepper in the produce aisle. God knows I need help with that at our local Weiss. They just do not have the greatest produce. But at fighting, if one of the things you're not good at is fighting and you're a professional fighter, it's a problem. In my profession, it's not, but in theirs, it seems to be an issue. I don't like the time props here. Could Sherman win some goofy split decision? Probably. Who knows? Any outcome here is not off the table. A round 1 KO either side is not unlikely. A Parisian round 1 ridiculous submission wouldn't surprise me. Sherman round 3 again wouldn't surprise me. But whoever wins this fight probably scores really well. So DraftKings, a lot of this fight, probably 50-50. And from a betting perspective, if you have a strong take, you are a better man than I, because I ain't got shit on this one. It's funny that this didn't break Brady's TV, but the Tamaris Vidal Pascual one did. All right, moving on to the co-main event. Neil Magny against D-Rod. I'm a big D-Rod guy. I always have been. I like his volume. In DraftKings, this is a total pass. Magny maybe gets you a couple of takedowns, but let's be honest, this fight's going split decision, or it's going decision. I bet D-Rod to win by split decision at 10-1. I think it's crazy odds here. I was saying Magny by decision. I understand that. I would tell you this right now. If you like Magny by decision, bet the split decision here at plus 400 because Rodriguez is probably going to be the guy that's had the most volume going against Magny. Magny's a vet. He knows how to make fights ugly. He knows how to get you up against the cage, grind you out. He does have some sneaky takedown potential. But I think D-Rod's going to throw so many punches in the first that he may steal the first, and then it's going to get weird. Because I don't think Rodriguez is going to really hurt him. He's not going to put him out. I don't think Magny's going to hurt D-Rod. I could see this just being really hard to judge with no real damage being done. D-Rod also just fought recently against the Leech. I don't want to really take too much stock into that because everybody changed dance partners 24 hours beforehand. So there's no scouting done. He didn't look great, but now he's had time for this fight to get prepared. I think it's going to be a split either way. I won't talk you off either side, but personally, I favor the D-Rod side at the price. If this line flips and Magny goes to plus odds, you probably want to take whoever's the dog here. But I think the split decision is the way to go in a fight that 95 out of 100 times is going to a decision with really no damage done. So one of my favorite props on the card is this. Now I'll get to another one of my favorite props with the main event. Marina Rodriguez against Amanda Lemos. Must be brought up that Lemos has had some travel issues this week. The fight's going to be fine, but not getting in Vegas in time could affect the regimen. So if you want to take a shot, I'm going to be rostering both of these guys in DraftKings. It's a 5-round fight. I think you have to. Lemos is going to be dangerous early with the striking. But I think Rodriguez is pretty tough, and I think she weathers a storm the first 6-7 minutes. And I think Rodriguez round 3, round 4 at plus 750 is my favorite prop here. I do see a finish. Fight doesn't go was minus 135. I do not have a great track record betting fight doesn't go in women's main events. So just let me get that out right there. IO is right on board with me with the round 3, round 4. I love it. I have round 3, round 4. I don't have I can't combo the methods. If you want to play them each individually, I don't think she's getting a submission here. I would find that very unlikely. Like I said, must roster both of these guys because Lemos with a first round knockout would break the slate. I just don't see it happening. I think you have to have some of her to prepare for it. And Rodriguez traditionally has not scored great in 5-round fights, but just pulling this up here, last fight, 61 points, 3-round decision. But looking at the 5-round fights, Mackenzie Dern, 89 points, not great, 144 strikes, but no takedowns. That's the problem is she's finish dependent, but in a 5-round fight, 89 points, 85 points, 88 with a knockout over Hibas. You're still going to want some of her in a 5-round fight, and she does have some finishing equity. Can Marina lock in a standing triangle? No, she cannot. And handsomest fight, hey man, I'm jealous of Lemos' hair. I would kill for hair like that. So that is the full card breakdown for me. The tracked bets that I currently have: 2.5 units on Batista money line and the Minner under 2.5. That's a plus 137. 1 unit on Batista in the distance at plus 165. 1.5 units on Miranda Maverick inside the distance at plus 100. 0.5 units, I have to put this in, 0.5 units on the split decision for Magny and D-Rod. And 1 unit on the fight ends by submission with Derek Minner and the Chinese Wolverine, Shailin Nurdenbeke. What's up, Papa Chuck? That is my breakdown for the card. Just as a little bonus to justify being on the channel, I want to tell you guys some of the other bets that I have this weekend. Nothing on soccer on Saturday. Sunday for college football. I like that. This is probably a trap, but I don't care. I like Tennessee. I'm taking the first half team total over 13.5. I'm taking them to cover. Small poke on the money line. And if you like Hendon Hooker, and everybody knows I like me some hookers, to win the Heisman or have a good game here, he's minus 110 right now in DraftKings. You're probably not going to get better odds because even if he's competitive in a loss, he's going to go to minus 200. I like Clemson minus 3.5. Notre Dame stinks. All they can do is run. I don't think they're going to be able to run at all. The total's pretty low. I think Clemson wins like 17-3. I am waiting for Oregon team totals to come out. I'm just going to blindly bet them. I don't care. I do like Tulane minus 6.5 on the road against Tulsa. And I love favorite spot in college, UNC. Tommy's saying UNC team total. Excuse me. I like UNC minus 6.5. Virginia is just awful. Their defensive metrics are against some of the worst offensive teams. They're trying to make Drake May the Heisman winner. I think he's going to go off. Team totals, pretty nice bet too, but I think UNC runs away with this. Sunday soccer, just three bets I like in the Premier League. Arsenal Chelsea draw. That's a 2-2 game. Exact score. Love it. Manchester United to beat Aston Villa. Newcastle on the road to beat Southampton. And my 4 best players for the NFL. And if you want more breakdowns as to why, go on WizBet's channel. Gordo, him and I broke down everything last night. Give me Atlanta plus 3.5 at home. Chargers are going to be without Mike Williams, maybe without Keenan Allen. They're on the road. West Coast team playing at 1 o'clock. And Atlanta's just kind of weirdly fun. So give me Atlanta with 3.5. Give me Seattle money line to beat Arizona. I've been bad betting Seattle games all year. Just take that into account. Under 49.5 in the Green Bay Detroit game. It's way too many points. It plays Detroit having no defense. But honestly, the 2 best units in this game are going to be Detroit's offense, who is now without TJ Hawkinson, and Green Bay's defense, which has played pretty well. Trey Alexander will probably be on Amon-Ra St. Brown, negating him a little bit. Swift's banged up. I don't see that being a high-scoring game. Green Bay can't score at all this year. Detroit will somehow look like a competent defense. And final bet there, I love the over in the Chicago-Miami game. Miami's offense right now is just on fire. Chicago just traded away 2 of its defenders. I don't know what they're doing with this Claypool signing. I just have no clue what they're doing, but Chicago's been really good at scoring garbage time points. And honestly, Miami's secondary is what's holding them back from being a really good team in the NFL. Their offense looks good. Their secondary is terrible. I think Justin Fields could get 14 in garbage time, and that may be enough. Is TJ Hawkinson an elite tight end? Well, if you're a Vikings fan, you probably think he's better than Kelsey, and he's better than Waller, and he's better than Kittle, and he's better than Pitts. If you're another one of my cohorts, you probably think he's top 5. I think my answer to that is relax. Does he have potential? Yes. Is he elite? Let's everybody calm their titties on this one. Anyway, that has been the show. We have a bunch of wonderful content we did this week. Probability on the channel with Wheezy and Brady was done on Monday. Great look at some time props here. I did a prop show with Propaholic yesterday, covering some of the crazier angles on this card. And like I said, next week, we're going to have a whole bunch of cool stuff for the pay-per-view, including a guest that I cannot reveal yet, but that you'll be very, very, very excited about, and actually surprised that him and I are doing a show together. So good luck to you guys this weekend. If you have any questions, I'm always accessible on Twitter, @LouBetcha. Good luck. God bless. Enjoy your weekend as we head into the Thanksgiving stretch. Take care.